Hi, today is April 3rd. We finished two lectures, first week and the second week by online because of the coronavirus pandemic situation. And this lecture will be provided probably and hopefully by offline. Even though this lecture is provided by offline, I am preparing this one. This one is compressed lecture, and I'm trying to explain only key points because some students want to take this lecture by online. Thus, I am providing this one. But instead of full lecture, this one will be summarized. That means this one is compressed lecture. Okay. From the new chapter in the third week, we are supposed to start from this chapter, JavaScript. I'll show you later in the web page, in the website of the w3schools.com, which we are learning. And this one is covered in the after midterm exam, and the whole tutorial, full tutorial will be covered after midterm exam. This small chapter will be omitted. That means I will not ask in the midterm exam. Some chapters also, those are not very important, those I may skip, and those skipped chapters may be given to you as the reading assignment. And let's go on. And some important chapters I will cover in this lecture. Some sections. Section means that is including many chapters. For example, HTML forms. I will show you later in the website, and HTML media will cover, and that will be covered in the third week, means today, and fourth week. Those will be covered. But some sections like HTML graphics, that is scalable vector graphic and the canvas. Those two chapters are included there, and this one is using JavaScript. And after that, HTML APIs. There are many chapters, and those are using JavaScript. Thus, I will skip at this moment. And that will be covered after midterm exam. That means after understanding of that JavaScript, we learn again. There, not again, we learn in detail. After learning JavaScript, thus we'll be back later. Okay, this is the brief summary about the third week lecture and the fourth week lecture. I will explain again and again. Okay, I will explain in this website, w3schools.com. In the first week and the second week, we learned these chapters in this HTML tutorial. Probably until here we learn, and from today we learn these chapters. And as I mentioned in the previous explanation, we may skip some chapters, and I will explain later, and those are left for the reading assignment. Here, this JavaScript, this one is very small chapter. Actually, we are learning after midterm exam. This JavaScript tutorial will cover much more in detail about this JavaScript. This is brief introduction. And you don't need to worry about at this moment. Just for reference, you can refer to this. After that, we'll learn about these chapters, and some chapters, those are not very important, and the reading assignment may be better for understanding, thus I am providing the others except this in this lecture, and the skipped chapters are left for reading assignment. And this is the section, as I mentioned, HTML form section will cover in this lecture. And after that, this section, HTML graphics, as I mentioned already, will not cover, because this canvas, this chapter is using JavaScript. Thus, after midterm exam, after learning JavaScript, we'll be back. Even though this one is not using JavaScript, we'll be back and learn together. And this one is not using JavaScript, thus we'll complete this one in the third week or in the first week before midterm exam. Thus that is the that is belonging to the scope of the midterm exam. And after that, this one is HTML APIs. Even though that is chapters in the HTML5 section, this one is using JavaScript, and we'll be back after learning JavaScript. Thus, in the midterm exam, I will not ask about this. That's it. And the others, just for reference, and you can refer to those chapters. Thus today, let's start from these file paths. Okay, I will enlarge a little bit. Okay, before going to this chapter, let's look at briefly this web page, simple web page, to look at. This is youngkim.net, as you probably used already. And here you can see the syllabus. If you click this one, then we can see this. Okay, this one is explaining, and this one is the syllabus. In the first week, I introduced already, but in this third week, let's look at where we are. We are learning HTML responsive and forms, and still we are learning HTML5 introduction and elements, and those concepts we are learning. After that, in the first week probably, we learn these chapters, sections, and we'll complete HTML5 until first week. This is April 10th. After 2 online lectures, after that we will do our normal offline lecture, but I am preparing this one as the compressed lecture, just for reference. You can refer to this compressed lecture by online. After that, in the 5th week and the 6th week, we'll complete CSS and the CSS3. And in the 7th week, probably in the May 1st, we'll take midterm exam. Before that, probably we'll take mobile quiz test, April 24th. About the chapters, and about some reading assignment, and about the watching video assignment, I will check whether you understand and whether you take the assignment thoroughly. I'll check in this mobile quiz test in the 6th week. Probably that is April 24th. Okay, let's go back to this chapter. Okay, I'll enlarge a little bit. Okay, HTML file path. To access the file properly, we need to provide URL or path name and so on. And this one is explaining about that. For example, to access some JPEG image, and we should provide that the file name here. But if that file is not located at the same folder or same directory, then we should provide some folder name. If that file is located in that same folder, located in the image folder, in the current folder, as described here. If that file, picture.jpg, that file is located in the folder, hierarchically one level up, that means parent folder or parent directory that is located there, then we should specify in this way. That means parent directory or parent folder. HTML5 file path will use this way in many chapters. If we want to access some specific file, image, or some CSS file, or even JavaScript file later, we need to specify in that way. A file path describes the location of a file in a website folder structure. File paths are used when linking to external files like web pages, images, style sheets, JavaScript. And also we can use this absolute file path. An absolute file path is a full URL to an internet file. For example, if we are specifying the full URL like this, that means the protocol name and the domain name and the path name and finally the file name, then that is called full URL. You can try it by yourself. And this one is about relative file path. A relative file path points to a file relative to the current page, as we learned already, and this one is explaining a little bit more in detail about that. For example, if that image file is located in this image folder, then we can access it. Okay, let's try here. For example, and this picture.jpg, that image file is located in the images folder. That image folder is located in the same folder with this HTML file. As we learned in the previous explanation, and this one is the parent folder, and belonging to that folder, and the images, this one is there, and this one is belonging to that folder. Then we can access in this way. Let's move to the next. HTML head. As we learned already, HTML is composed of head section and the body section. Among them, head element is explained here. And this head element is a container for metadata. Metadata means data about data, and is placed between the HTML tag and the body tag. Usually, HTML metadata is data about the HTML document, and usually that metadata is not displayed. Metadata typically define the document's title, character set, styles, script, and other meta information, for example. Among them, let's look at this title element. This one, as we learned already, this one is defining the title of the document and is required in all HTML documents. Like this. And you can try this one, as I showed you already, to your Visual Studio Code or Notepad++. Then you can see that the title that is shown here, and this one is not showing properly because this one is using w3schools.com own text editor. So you can try with the Notepad or Notepad++ or Visual Studio Code. I showed you already this, I am skipping that. HTML style element. This style element is used to define style information for a single HTML page that is usually internal style among three kinds of style presentation. There are inline style and internal style and external style. Among them, this one is internal. That means in the same file, the style is there, like this. In the same file with this HTML document, and that is there, and we can use, we can show this style, we can show this design. Okay, I'll skip some opened tabs. If that style is located in the outside and that is external style, then we can bring with this link tag and with this relationship and href attribute, and we can specify that file name here. If we need full URL, then we should specify here to bring, to access them that correctly. And then we learn about this CSS more in detail in this tutorial, CSS tutorial, after finishing this HTML5 tutorial. This one is about HTML meta element. Meta tag name here. Here we can specify the character set and what this meta name description and the content, and there are so many, and sometimes name keywords, and this is about keywords. This one is about description, and also this kind. Sometimes about the refresh. Every 30 seconds, document will be refreshed. And some others we'll learn later. Usually meta tag that is located, embedded here in the header section. Here, meta. And also to set the viewport, HTML5 introduced a method to let web designers take control over the viewport through the meta tag. Viewport is the user's visible area of a web page, and it may vary to the device and will be smaller on a mobile phone than on a computer screen. Because depending upon the screen size, that will be changed responsibly. That is called responsive web design, and that is related to that. And this meta tag will be used, and also some others we'll learn later. And then now in the meta tag, we should specify in this way. Name should be viewport, and the content should be width, device width. Device means the screen of the PC or mobile device, and initial scale, and also we can change this one, smaller or bigger than this, we can control. First, with this meta viewport element, we can give the browser's instructions on how to control the page's dimensions and the scaling. And this initial scale 1.0 means that is initial zoom level. When the page is first loaded by the browser on the screen, then that is the size to show. For example, this one is explaining a little bit more about that viewport. And here, this one is not using viewport meta tag, and this one is using viewport meta tag. What's the difference? Let's look at. I'll click this one, and I'll try to change the size, and it is not reduced. It is not reduced properly. It is clipping the original photo, and you can compare. If I am using, okay, after nothing, let's look at again. Okay, let's look at file here. If I am clicking this one, then we can see how this viewport is being used here, and what's the main difference between two, and we can compare to the previous one. And if I am reducing this one, and you can see this photo image is being reduced automatically. Depending upon the screen size, it is being adjusted. If we are using this meta tag and viewport, then we can control. And we learn in detail about this later. This is enough at this moment. And also, as I mentioned already, JavaScript can be included in this script element. This whole thing is JavaScript function actually here. And we learn later. And the others just for reference. And this one is explaining some omitting of the HTML head and body tags. And according to the HTML standard, this HTML body and header tags can be omitted like this, but that is not recommendable here. Even though that is omitted, the interpreter browser is so smart, thus we can see the result properly, but that is not recommendable. Because omitting these tags can crash. Later we learn about that. Document object model or XML software and produce errors in all the browsers. Okay, this one is about the head elements. And you can see, you can refer to this reference later. Let's move to the next. HTML layout. Layout means you can design on the screen, and that is related to the layout. Layout example here on the screen. How to present. And the HTML layout elements, let's look at this one. To show this, we are using some style here, body, and header, and navigation. And this layout is related to the cascading style, CSS. This one is using this style related element, properties, and property values here. Those are related to the CSS. Thus in CSS, we learn much more in detail about this. First, at this moment, just briefly you can look at. And then we learn in detail later. This one is related to the layout. And in the HTML5 layout related elements, those are related to this HTML5. That means this header and the section, navigation, UL, navigation, and the article, those are newly introduced in HTML5, and those are related to this layout. Okay. Website often display content in multiple columns, like a magazine or newspaper. HTML offers several semantic elements that define the different parts of a web page, for example. And those elements are provided first time in HTML5. Header defines, this one is defining the header for document or a section. NAV, this one is defining a container for navigation links. Section, this one defines a section in a document. Article defines an article. Aside defines a content aside from the content, like sidebar, like a sidebar. And footer here defines a footer, and that's it. There are 5 different ways to create multi-column layouts. Each way has its pros, advantage, and disadvantage. Usually, we used to use this table, but that is not recommendable. And those table-related design should be implemented using CSS. Thus, we'll learn this one later in the CSS tutorial, right after finishing this HTML5 tutorial. Thus, those are related to the layout, CSS float property, and CSS flexbox, CSS framework, CSS grid. Thus, tip: do not use tables for your page layout. Important tips, this one is. And anyhow, the ready-made frameworks, CSS, those are provided in this section, w3.css or Bootstrap. Those are related to that. CSS design, CSS style, and CSS flows, also that is related to the layout, and we'll learn later in this CSS float and clear chapter later. Okay, mainly we'll learn about these CSS related layouts later in the following CSS tutorial in detail. Just the others, just for reference at this moment, I will discuss in the CSS tutorial later. And now there are several ways to design the layout, and also this one we'll learn later in the CSS tutorial. And also this one is related to the responsive web design and the CSS, and some basic concept we'll learn here and here. What is responsive web design? Responsive web design is about using HTML and CSS to automatically resize, hide, shrink, or enlarge a website to make it look good on all devices. Thus, it is being adjusted automatically depending upon the screen size. That is called responsive web design. Recently, many websites are using this concept to build their website, and they are using this responsive web design. And this one is okay. You can see that depending upon the screen size, you can see another contents here, and if that is being shrinked like this, then there's no space, so it is not shown there, and it is shown below, like this, depending upon the screen size. That is utilizing that screen and the layout for that, adjusting automatically. That is called responsive web design. Many web pages of the websites are using this design technique. Setting the viewport. This viewport meta tag, this one is related to that. This equal device is, and the initial scale should be that zoom level 1.0. Actual size, not compressed, not shrinked, not enlarged. And you can try here. Okay, we'll learn about this later in more detail in our real website name portal. I'll show you later. After finishing this one. This one is same one as we learned already. This one is using viewport. This one is not using viewport. Responsive images. That is defined here. That image is the image that scales nicely to fit any browser size. If we are using percent unit, then that will be good, and that will be used to adjust. That means that is being used for that responsive web design. Instead of the absolute value to the pixel unit, this percent unit will be better, because that percent means that will be depending upon the actual screen size. The full size of that device, that is 100%. If that device size is large, it doesn't matter. That is 100% is still the full size of that. And if that device size is small, then still that size is occupying the full screen. Thus, that is shrinking automatically. That is called responsive web design. Let's look at this one. Okay, I'll try to enlarge. How we can enlarge? You can enlarge here, like this. Watching the photo here, and you can see that is occupying fully the whole 100% screen size. If that is being shrunk like this, that is reduced automatically like that. That is called responsive web design. Here, response image. Here we are using this with 100%. Instead of real pixel, if we are using absolute value, then always it is fixed like this. Always constant size. Thus, instead of this absolute value for this responsive web design, we need to use this percent unit. And also we learn this CSS related property style property later, but this one is shown in advance. If the max width property is set to 100%, the image will scale down if it has to, but never scale up to be larger than its original size. And now this one will be related to the CSS tutorial. We learn later in detail about this, but at this moment you can refer to this. Now, to this one we can design the responsive web design. Let's try. And now here if we are using this maximum width 100%, then after this it is not being enlarged anymore. This size is the maximum size of the original photo image. So let's read this one first. Max width 100% prevents the image from getting bigger than its original size. That is related to that original size. That is the maximum original size. However, if you make the browser window smaller, the image will still scale down. Because below that original size, that can be adjusted, but beyond that maximum size, original size, that is not being enlarged. And we can control that with this max width property name. And that is related to the CSS tutorial. We'll learn that more in detail later. And to show different images depending on browser width. Here, HTML picture element. With this one, we can define different images for different browser window sizes. Let's look at this real example. This is explain about this picture, and this source and image, those are related. Probably similar example was shown already, but this w3schools.com tutorial is using the same example repeatedly and again and again, and for better understanding. If that contents belonging to that specific category, then it is being introduced again and again, repeated. Okay, and now let's look at this one first. We learn this one later, even though we are learning this one later. Let's look at this one. This one is responsive web design. Depending upon the screen size, we can intentionally enlarge or shrink. And depending upon the screen size, we can see different image. And how we can show this? It is picture element and the source element. And this one is related to that size. This one is related to that size. And here, you can see the actual size here of this screen size. And if you are enlarging, then height is constant, and this width is being changed. And if that is near to the 600, let's look at this 600 pixel, and that will be changed to other image. And now we'll learn this one later. Here, important thing is this source picture and the source, those elements are provided in this HTML5. Also, we can control the text size depending upon the screen size. That is called responsive text size. Here, some strange unit here. This is called viewport width. The 10 viewport width will set the size to 10% of the viewport width. That means percent of the whole viewport. Thus, depending upon the, let's look at. This is the definition for the viewport. One viewport means 1% of the viewport width. If the viewport is 50 centimeter wide, then one viewport means that is 1/10, 110, 100. That means 0.5 centimeter. Like this, text size. To this one, we can control that font size depending upon the viewport relatively. This one is 5 viewport. This one is 10 viewport. We can try. How about 20? You can enlarge. How about 1 viewport? Let's look at that. That is the smallest one. This one. 1 viewport size is like that, and you can imagine relatively. And the media query, we will have detailed media query section later. That is in the responsive app design section. And this one is introducing briefly in advance. Media query. In addition to resize text and images, it is also common to use media queries in responsive app pages. With media queries, we can define completely different styles for different browser sites. Some example here. This one is about the media query, and we'll learn later. And now at this moment, you don't need to worry about this. Those are all related to the CSS tutorial. In this HTML tutorial, CSS contents are being introduced in advance because it is being confusing. It is being confused already. Okay, let's try now. To this video query, add media we'll learn later anyhow. We can control the image size depending upon the value here. Here after 800. Okay, you can try. You can change here. How about 600? You can observe already. Okay, less. You can see this one, their screen size here. I I change this one 600. That's how it is being changed. About 600. You can see the design layout is changed a little bit. We can control this one with this media query, and the media query is taking one big section in CSS tutorial. So in terms of design, that is being changed, right? Here, here. But if that screen size is small, then instead of showing there vertically, we can show that menus like that. That is related to the responsive app design, and we'll learn in detail about this later in the CSS tutorial. Also, this one is related to that. You can try by yourself. And responsive app design frameworks, already some frameworks are built already, and we can use w3.css. This one you can try, and the tutorial is there in this here. This one is about that. This one is related to the CSS. We can use that built-in style simply. Instead of our own design, it may take time. Simply we can use already built styles. And that class name, we can use that like this. We'll learn this later. Those are already built-in class names we can use. And that will be discussed in the CSS tutorial. And here briefly you can refer to this. Also, as I mentioned already, this kind of CSS contents will be discussed a little more in detail. And also another one were features. Another popular framework is Bootstrap. And you can use this one if we want. Bootstrap. You can link that Bootstrap CSS file here. As we learned already, link with the link element and the relationship href, and you can specify the full URL to access that, and we can utilize here. Those are class names already built in this Bootstrap. Just simply we can use. Then we can use, and we can design this kind. Even though that is not very complicated and design, and simply we can understand the application of that Bootstrap. Here, when you open the screen side, you can see those are aligned vertically, and if that width is sufficient enough, then horizontally those are aligned. Okay, you can try others. Okay, from this, let's go back to the previous chapter screen here. Okay, from here, just that is reading assignment. I will explain Those are not very complicated. It is self-explaining. And I'll explain about this URL encode and some style guide, and we'll complete this one. And after that, we'll learn about HTML forms. Let's try to jump to here. Okay, we are using uniform resource locator, and this one is explained about that. Usually this one is related to the web address. Sometimes we want to use other language, other domain name, then that will be changed to other code. And here, that domain name URL that is being changed to other, and that is called URL encode, because this URL here is using ASCII code, and if that language is different, then that is being changed to this URL encoding character, ASCII, that is ASCII character. The definition of URL is like this. Protocol name, yes, that is defined here as scheme. This one is defining the type of internet service. This is about the protocols, and some domain name and the path name, and finally the file name. That is definition of the URL. And about the URL schemes, about the URL protocols, we can use this what is URL encoding. Why we need this URL encoding? URLs can only be sent over the internet using the ASCII character set. That is the restriction. Thus, we should encode. If a URL contains characters outside the ASCII set, the URL has to be converted. URL encoding replaces non-ASCII characters, for example, Korean characters, with the percent followed by hexadecimal digit we look at. URLs cannot contain spaces. URL encoding normally replaces the space with the plus sign, for example. We look at this one. This one is German character, winter. You can see how that is being converted to the URL. This is called URL encoding. This one is using this one. This German character is being changed to this. Okay, let's try other character. How about Korean character? In Korean, 한국.net, that means Korea. Submit. Then you can see that 한국.net, .net that is English, and it's the alphabet, the ASCII code we can present, thus that is same. But 한국, that is Korean, pure Korean character, and that is converted to this URL encoding. ASCII encoding examples, you don't need to remember, just for reference. This kind of special characters are being changed, that means encoded like this. But depending upon the different coding scheme, that the result will be different. And you don't need to memorize this. And also you can refer to this scheme in this URL encoding reference a little more in detail about that. And let's jump to this style guide, HTML style guide. And this is not a complicated one, a simple guideline about coding conventions. Always declare the document type as the first line in our document, like this. You can use this uppercase or lowercase, it doesn't matter. This is just a recommendation. It's up to you. HTML allows mixing uppercase and the lowercase letters in element names, but w3schools.com is recommending using lowercase element names. The reason is mixing uppercase and the lowercase names is bad, and developers normally use lowercase names, and the lowercase look cleaner, and the lowercase are easier to write. Thus, instead of this is bad way, and bad, and this is more recommendable. Also, if possible, close all HTML elements. Closing means this. This is closing tag. Even though we are missing this one, it is running well, but this one is recommended. Also this one, no closing tag here, but if possible, you should try to use that. Closing tag. Close the empty HTML elements. In HTML, it is optional to close empty elements, like this. This one is also allowed. But this one is compulsory, and that is required in HTML and XML. You should use in this way for this, but HTML, it doesn't matter. You can use in this way or this way. Anyway, you can try. If possible, try to use lowercase attribute names. This is bad. This one is explain about this attribute name, and this is better, recommendable, more recommended. And quote attribute values. This one is not using quotation mark here. If possible, this one is bad also. Try to use this quote, quotation character here. Image attribute. Here, as we discussed already, you should use this ALT, alternative, for the screen reader or for the blind, to explain the contents of the meaning of that image or the contents of that image. Spaces and equal signs, and if possible, instead of the empty space here, no empty space. That is more recommendable. Okay, the others just for reference. Table, and instead of that, we'll use CSS later. And this one is explaining about the HTML and body tags. If we are omitting these tags, and those are omitted here, and still it is running well, but it is recommendable not to omit, because that should be used, even though that browser is smartly interpreting that. Because the reason is, omitting body can produce errors in all the browsers. And also omitting HTML or body tag can crash document object model, and we'll learn this one later, and XML software. Also, this one is about head. Also, you can omit, and you can try this. Setting the viewport we learned already, and this one is about that. And also this is being repeated again. We are not using viewport, and we are using viewport. Depending upon that, the responsiveness is different. We need responsive web design, then we should use viewport method tag. Comment like this, or wrong. Comment statement like this. External style sheet, or internal. And this is inline. Sometimes we can use them. Okay, this one is about the JavaScript, loading JavaScript in HTML. And at this moment, you don't need to worry about that. With this one, we can complete this HTML section, tutorial section, but more about the forms, and still those are HTML tutorial, and we'll learn about this section later after taking some break time.